Thank you for joining us today as we remember the individuals who lost their lives to intimate and domestic partner violence. Thank you to our dignitaries and our guests and our family and friends. First, we would like to express our sincere condolences to all the family and friends who lost someone to intimate and domestic partner violence. Losing a loved one is never, ever easy. But losing a loved one to heinous acts of violence can be hard to grapple with. These kinds of attacks can wreck our ability to trust. It damages our sense of safety and our grounding of goodness in the world. The pain resulting from these senseless tragedies is often overlooked and not always talked about. We want everyone to know that the center is here, not only today, but always, to listen. So if you are a family member or friend and need to talk about what your loved one experienced, please reach out to us. Secondly, we want to take this opportunity to invite anyone who is experiencing violence to please reach out. Help is always available. Domestic violence is not a one-off. It is not a single occurrence. We should never, ever ignore the first shove, because over time, it can and possibly will escalate to much more. It's important that we recognize the signs of abuse at the earliest opportunities and help individuals get support before the violence escalates. So please learn the signs of abuse. I know we have some information in the back. Please pick up information. Let us know if you need more. We're happy to get it to you. Real domestic violence is not just someone hiding in a closet or someone with a black eye. It's a mixture of shame, confusion, insecurities, betrayal, longing, and apologies. It's bad times and times that also can seem very, very good, which makes things much more difficult to decipher. It's complicating and heart-wrenching. And at the center, we understand. We understand, and we are here to listen without judgment and to be a partner in safety with those who need it. People in abusive relationships don't always realize it, and they don't always call it what it is. They often will minimize it out of shame and out of guilt. But we know that they are afraid. And if you know of someone that is currently in a relationship and they're afraid of their partner, please ask them to reach out, or if it's you, please reach out. Please reach out before anyone gets hurt, before an explosive incident. We are here at any point and will walk beside you, supporting you in whatever steps you decide to take. We will always offer safety planning. I want to take a minute to acknowledge the 34 chairs that we currently have in the center. As Chief Conrad said to me as he came up, this is heartbreaking, and it is. And one of the best ways to reduce domestic violence is to talk about it. Talk about what's happening. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce Kim. Kim has let the center be a part of her journey, and she is going to talk to you and share with you her experience.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I ditto Elizabeth's thank yous to all of you that are present today. This is a bit difficult for me. It's about the third time I think I've told my story publicly, and it never gets easier, and it gets harder for different reasons. And before I begin my story, I'd first ask that you understand that my abuser is still around. He's present, and he's made good progress to remain a part of my grown daughter's lives. And so I just ask that you respect that, right? It's a little hard to talk about the fact that he's that my life was so bad at one time, but that he has indeed made progress, and he's still here in the city and doing his best to be a father and a grandfather, and I commend him for that. I am a survivor of domestic violence and a long-term volunteer with the Center for Women and Families. I've had the good fortune of holding a number of volunteer positions with the Center for Women and Families for over 20 years, inclusive of board chair. But my very first encounter with the Center for Women and Families was in 1991 as a client. I was 30 years old with a newborn and a 3.5-year-old, 2 little girls. My then husband was becoming more and more abusive and was also abusing alcohol to the point of experiencing blackouts. My story is like many others, but unlike those we remember today and that we honor today, I was one of the lucky ones that walked away. I was educated. I had a great family support system, a wonderful mother, a great job, and I was smart enough to call the Center for Women and Families for assistance when I was in despair. I'll never forget the night I made that call. The advocate on the line quickly assessed my situation, made recommendations, and met me at the courthouse to file an emergency protective order. It's interesting because as I parked my car this morning on the street, I began to kind of shake a bit because it's still fresh. It triggers that same evening that I pulled my car to the same spot and walked in alone to meet that advocate. The most significant thing she did was help me orchestrate a plan, and you heard Elizabeth allude to that earlier. I had to save money, get an attorney, and make a safe exit strategy. With my mother's assistance, I was very deliberate and intentional about that plan. There's not enough time today to walk you through the details, but it was not an easy journey. By the time it was over, my family priest, the therapist that I had hired, and the courts seemed to support his plight much more than mine and my children's at that time. There was a bullet hole in our living room ceiling. He had sprayed me full blast in the face with the water hose while I was dressed in a silk dress and on my way to the hospital where I was a vice president at the time to basically chair a table for a very important event. He had urinated in the sink in front of my children. He had knocked me across the kitchen floor, and he had thrown punches and objects toward me and my girls while under the influence. The verbal abuse was relentless, and my nickname was Miss Effing Vice President. So that's usually how I was greeted. I have the privilege today, fast forwarding, to serve on this community's Fatality Review Committee. A number of you are here today from that committee. Please raise your hands and be recognized. You do great work, and I'm proud to be at the table with you. One of my takeaways, having been a part of that committee for years, is this single line that many of the victims will say in their documentation, and that is the look in his eyes. And so one of the things I try to educate victims on, because I am a SANE nurse, so I'm a practicing nurse, and I am a sexual assault nurse examiner, and I'm also certified to do strangulation cases. So many times when I ask my strangulation patients, what's the last thing you remember? They'll say, the look in his eyes. And I too remember that. I remember it very well. I sometimes feel survivor's guilt. I saw that look in his eyes, and I called the center. I called my mom. We left Louisville, we moved to Southern Indiana, and I remain there today, 25 years later. There are a lot of wonderful community leaders here today. There are a lot of great servant leaders on the Fatality Review Committee. I am so proud of the collaboration between the courts, the Center for Women and Families, the judges, Chief Conrad and your team, the social workers gathered here today, and the medical providers like myself. We've come a long way since my plight began almost 30 years ago. I personally had officers come to my home. At least 2 to 3 times neighbors called. The most severe case that the neighbors called for assistance for me was when I was backed up against the garage with the refrigerator door that my husband had dismantled, and he was pressing me up against the bricks of the refrigerator, and our next door neighbors called. The officers that took that call were always kind and responsive, and they coached me well. If you see something, say something. Thank goodness I had neighbors that weren't afraid to get involved, that weren't afraid to be a voice for me. I want to take you now to my first day of court, and again, we've come a long way. On my first day of court and during the opening statements, my judge said, as he was reviewing my profile in my then position of vice president, again at a flourishing hospital in the city of Louisville, he said, "No wonder the cost of health care is so high." To make a long story short, I paid for my divorce. It was $33,000. My husband got the house. I had to pay him maintenance for years because I could. Now, I'm not whining. It was the best investment I ever made. I'm still here. My husband, John Barry, and I have 4 flourishing children. We've been together for 25 years, and we have 5 grandbabies and our 6th on the way. I've had a blessed life. Every chance I get, I mentor other young victims, men, women. I encourage them not to settle for anyone that can't give them more than they can give themselves. And I'm not talking about money or a big home or a nice car or jewelry. I'm talking about love, respect, peace, and partnership. I encourage them not to think they can fix anyone. I refer them to the lethality assessment that so many of you are aware of, that if someone has guns in the house, if they're using alcohol and drugs, if they're beginning to shove you or push you or knock you around, if they're abusing your children, if they're threatening to kill you, if they're controlling your time or your money, if they're attempting to make you powerless, and many of those things were true for me. I'm a very strong, happy woman, but I was at my lowest point in my life at that time. There were days driving home when I really did think like maybe it would be better off if I just ran off the road. I was so depressed and so defeated, and it was really only having those 2 girls that I knew that needed me that kept me going. I am more than a survivor today. I am a thriver. I am happy, strong, full of faith and love, and capable of helping others, all because of the Center for Women and Families. My mother, my attorney, Mark Malloy, I wish he was here today. If you know Mark Malloy, please tell him that I did a shout out for him. He remains a true friend and advocate for me today, and I've referred a number of other people to him. He wasn't just an attorney. He was a true advocate and friend on my journey and remains so today. My husband, John Barry, our 4 children, have also given me additional purpose and resiliency. I have voice. I walked away, unlike those victims we're honoring today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, for sharing your incredible journey with us today. The Center is grateful for all that you continue to do for us. Now I would like to invite Mayor Fisher to say a few words.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I want to thank Kim for her leadership there and telling her story. That is not easy to do, and you just helped countless people. Thank you. I want to thank everybody who's gathered here to honor and remember those that have lost their lives to domestic violence. We're all here because we care, and we're all here because our hearts go out for the loved ones that we've lost and then for the survivors that are left behind. The facts are that this domestic violence affects every part of our community. It crosses all geographic lines, it crosses all demographic lines, and touches all of us in one way or another. And this is a community problem that will continue to require a community response. In Louisville, as I hope every city in the world, we have 0 tolerance for domestic violence. We respond to these crimes by organizing and mobilizing with great partners around the community. Thanks to Elizabeth, the staff, and the volunteers with the Center for Women and Families for their incredible work in caring for, protecting, and supporting survivors of domestic violence. They do tremendous work each and every day, and we're very, very appreciative. We'll hear in a moment from Chief Conrad. I want to thank the Chief and all of LMPD, especially those with our Special Victims Unit, for taking a proactive approach when responding to domestic violence calls and working to protect people from violence. Law enforcement is one tool that we have to fight domestic violence, and that's why I also want to extend a special thanks to State Senator Julie Rocky Adams and Representative Joni Jenkins. Thanks to their persistence and leadership, the anti-strangulation bill was signed into law a few months ago, making strangulation a Class C felony in Kentucky. I want to also recognize our Metro government team who work hard to fight domestic violence, just like our Criminal Justice Commission does. Our Office for Resilience and Community Services, Eric Friedlander is here, our chief, and Tina Ward-Pugh, who heads our Louisville Metro Office for Women. Thank you, Tina, as well. Dedicating resources to end domestic violence through advocacy and education are part of the mission of the city's Office for Women since its founding. For example, right after the tragic murder of Mary Byron in 1993 by her boyfriend, who was released from jail without notice to her, the Office for Women responded and worked to implement the VINE system, Victim Identification and Notification Every Day, now known as APRIS, as the company. And VINE now is available in nearly every state. And Marcia Roth worked for the city back in the day. She led to that, and then, of course, went on for a long time to lead VINE, and she just retired from that. So, Marcia, thank you for your great leadership in this work over the years. Another consequence of domestic violence is that so many children who grow up in violent homes struggle with PTSD, which is a huge hindrance to their learning, emotional development, and then we frequently encounter them down the road in our criminal justice system. And so we're working to address PTSD-related issues with our Compassionate Schools project. I want to commend JCPS for having the largest compassion-based curriculum in the entire country. The Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods is partnering with U of L and Centerstone on the Trauma Resilient Community Initiative, a $5 million grant we won as a city, a 5-year trauma-informed care program. And our Office for Women has partnered with LMPD and JCPS to implement the Trauma-Informed Support Project to provide early intervention and support to students who have been exposed to violence. So today's ceremony, or today's event, is both a ceremony and a call to action. October is obviously Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and there are many ways that you can act to create change. We can join with the Center for Women and Families and everyone here today to serve as an everyday advocate, to listen, to believe, and then to act to support domestic violence survivors. Join the center or other nonprofits through a donation and or through volunteer work. And remember, we're just 20 days away from an election. Your vote counts. Who we elect makes a difference in our laws and our resources to fight domestic violence. So understand where candidates stand on this issue and vote for candidates who will stand up for survivors. And remember that when women vote, women win, families win, and our communities win. So thanks to all of you all for standing up and speaking out and helping us build an even more compassionate community. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Fisher. We appreciate all your support. Next, I would like to turn things over to Chief of the Louisville Metro Police Department, Steve Conrad. Chief Conrad has been a steady support to the center as he is currently serving on our board and leading by example as head of the LMPD. We couldn't ask for a better ally in the police department.
Good afternoon, Elizabeth. Thank you for the kind words. Mayor, well done. And Kim, thank you for sharing an amazing story of survival. I want to thank you too again, Elizabeth, for inviting me to be a part of this important event every year. It's a sobering reminder of the devastating impact of domestic and intimate partner violence. You know, each of the people that we'll be naming later today left behind a loved one, a parent, a sibling, a child, friends, and every day that person remembers what they've lost. You know, coming here together gives us an opportunity to remember, but it also gives us an opportunity to raise awareness about the impact of this problem here in Louisville. In fact, intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of the violent crime that happens here in America. Remembering is just one important step in terms of combating domestic violence. The men and women of the Louisville Metro Police Department are another key step. The work they do every day to try to hold those who would commit crimes against their loved ones is important. It is something that we take very, very seriously in the police department, and I will tell you in Louisville, we're lucky to have an amazing partner in this effort with the Center for Women and Families. I urge everyone in this community to do what they can to support the center. The work that they do is truly making a difference and literally saving lives. But what I'd like for you to take away from today's event is beyond the idea of remembering and beyond the concept of enforcement. It actually takes each and every one of us to do what we're going to do if we are going to prevent violent crime in our community. Domestic violence affects everyone here, every citizen. It is everyone's business. Keeping it a secret only empowers abusers. Domestic violence, as the mayor had mentioned, crosses all lines of age, race, religion, education, and socioeconomic status. All victims of domestic and intimate partner violence need to know that we, as a community, are here to help. It's also important to remember that if you need help, help is only a phone call away. It's also important to make sure that you're watching out for your neighbors by reporting incidents that seem to be leading towards the potential for violence in that person's home. If you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence or intimate partner violence, please reach out for help. Call 911 if you're in immediate danger, or call Louisville's 24-hour crisis and information line at 1-844-BE-SAFE-1. No matter how you call us, I can assure you the men and women of the Louisville Metro Police Department are ready to do what we can to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Conrad. The community is fortunate to have a police force that has partnered so closely with the center. We look forward to our continued partnership as we work together to stop this epidemic. Now I would like to introduce Tashana Brown, who is currently our Interim Director of Domestic Violence Services. And Tashana is going to come up and read the names of the 31 individuals that we're here today to remember. But before we do that, I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank our incredible dignitaries, Commonwealth Attorney Tom Wine, County Attorney Michael Connell, and our wonderful David Nicholson, Circuit Court Judge. So thank you again so much for being here today. And then also, if we have family and friends that are here to remember loved ones, and you would like to place a flower on their chair, once we start the ceremony, if you would come up here, we want to give you that opportunity. So at this time, I'm going to turn over to Tashana.
Thank you for your presence here today as we gather not only to raise awareness about intimate partner violence in our community, but also to pay our respects for those that have lost their lives this year as a result of domestic violence. In just a moment, I will ask for your silence as I read the names of those Kentucky residents who died this year from domestic violence. We also wanted you to know more than just their names. So if you could take a look around and you'll notice the empty chairs. Each labeled with the name of the individual who could have been here today if things were different. So please take a moment to walk around, read their names, perhaps it's someone that you know or someone that you love, and think of them. Stop by our table in the back where you can pick up material that may help you to know how to safely help someone who is suffering from domestic violence in their life. So now if I could have your silent attention as we remember each of the following people today. Uneslis Atdala Ramos. Chloe Randolph Abdakadir. Jennifer Bennett. Louise Cecil. Vicki S. Connor. Walter Dutton. Debbie Forrest. Curtis Head. Dana Hodges. Donna J. Holland. Megan Lee Huff. Jerry D. Johnson. Rebecca Lancaster. Rhonda Laws. Mandy LeMay. Darcy Markwell. Paige Murphy. Nicole Murray. Anna Noble. Jalen Ragsdale. Tracy A. Rigsby. Monica Roberts. Brittany Silvers. Lori L. Smith. Kamari Snowden. Amy Lynn Slaymaker. Judy Stalcup. Jimmy Taylor. Tayada Thomas. Tara Todd. Tiffany Tomerlin. Cherie Turner. Brittany Wilson. Kyle York.
I'm not sure I have the words to express the grief. Just thank you all so much for taking out time of your day to be here, to honor these incredible individuals, and I'm certain the wonderful impact that they made on the lives. Please go in peace, and remember, speak up if you see something, you hear something, or you know someone, or you're going through it yourself. We are here to be with you. God bless.